Welcome to This Explainer. If you've ever stared at a manufacturer's income statement and wondered, how on earth did they get that final cost of goods sold number? Well, you're in exactly the right place. Today, we're going to completely demystify these calculations so you are totally exam ready. We're breaking down the exact flow of costs, literally tracking it from raw materials sitting in a dusty warehouse all the way to the shiny finished product heading out the door. Let's get into it.
Here's our roadmap for today. We're starting with retailer versus manufacturer cost flows, then moving to the 3 inventory categories, step-by-step cost formulas, running the numbers, and finally wrapping up with common exam mistakes.
Section 1. Retailer versus manufacturer cost flows.
Think about a standard retailer. Computing their cost of goods sold is honestly a breeze, right? That's because they only deal with one class of inventory. They just buy a finished product and resell it. The math is simple. Beginning inventory plus purchases minus ending inventory, and boom, there's your cost of goods sold. But a manufacturer? They build from scratch. That completely changes the game for tracking inventory. Instead of just one class, manufacturers juggle 3 distinct classes of inventory. And because of that, we have to use these multi-step calculations just to figure out what was actually sold.
Section 2. The 3 inventory categories.
So, let's look at that first category, direct materials. You can think of these as the raw ingredients just hanging out in the warehouse before any production actually starts. By definition, these are tangible inputs that can feasibly be traced straight to the product. A classic example? A huge stack of sheet metal waiting to be welded into heavy equipment. Oh, and here's a key detail to remember. Any costs to bring those materials to the production line, like freight in, absolutely get lumped into this direct materials cost.
Then we hit the second category, work in process, or WIP. This is the messy middle. It's where labor and overhead step in to transform those raw materials into something completely new. We're talking about goods that are literally right there on the active factory floor being assembled. They aren't raw materials anymore, but hey, they definitely aren't finished products yet either.
Finally, we have the third category, finished goods. Just like it sounds, these are the completed items. The assembly is 100% done, all the labor is applied, and now they're just patiently waiting in the shipping warehouse for a customer to come along and buy them.
Moving on to Section 3, step-by-step cost formulas.
Now, this is absolutely crucial. Notice how these stack sequentially. The bottom line result of one formula literally becomes the starting ingredient for the very next one. You go step by step. Direct materials used, then total manufacturing costs, then cost of goods manufactured, and finally cost of goods sold. It's like a domino effect. You absolutely cannot skip a step. You have to calculate them in this exact order.
Step 1. We kick things off by calculating the direct materials that were actually used up in production during the period. Here's the formula. Beginning direct materials plus net purchases, which remember includes stuff like freight in minus any returns, and then you subtract your ending direct materials. This gives us the exact dollar amount of raw materials that left the quiet storeroom and entered the chaos of the active factory floor. All right, step 2, we take those used materials we just calculated and we mix in human labor and factory overhead to find our total manufacturing costs. Now, direct labor is the cost of human effort traced directly to the product. Think of a welder's hourly wages. Manufacturing overhead is a catch-all for indirect manufacturing costs. This means indirect materials like glue, indirect labor like the factory janitor, and the factory utilities. Add those 3 pieces together, materials, labor, and overhead, and bam, you've got your total manufacturing costs. Now for step 3, finding the cost of goods manufactured, or COGM. The big takeaway here is that COGM essentially acts as a massive purchases account for the manufacturer. Think about it. Just like a retailer tracks what they bought to sell, a manufacturer has to track what they built to sell. It's this required intermediate bridge connecting the active factory floor straight to the storefront. So, how do we actually calculate this intermediate bridge? We blend the total manufacturing costs with our work-in-process inventory. The formula is beginning work-in-process plus the total manufacturing costs we found back in step 2 minus the ending work-in-process. What does this give us? The total cost of the goods that successfully survived the active factory floor and made it into the finished goods warehouse during this period. And that brings us to step 4, the finish line. This perfectly shows how we substitute COGM in place of a retailer's standard purchases number to find the cost of goods sold. We take beginning finished goods, add the cost of goods manufactured we just calculated, and subtract ending finished goods. That final golden number?
That is the cost of goods sold that goes straight onto the income statement. Let's see this in action. Section 4, running the numbers. Let's run a quick numerical example. First, we need to calculate our total manufacturing costs. If we combine $5,000 in direct materials used, $5,000 in direct labor costs, and $4,000 in manufacturing overhead, we get $14,000 in total manufacturing costs for the period. Basically, that's $14,000 of costs poured directly into the active production process. Next up, we follow the work-in-process flow. We take that $14,000 and drop it right into our WIP formula. Let's trace it out. We start with a beginning WIP inventory of $5,000. Add the $14,000 in total manufacturing costs. Then subtract the ending WIP inventory, which let's say is $4,000. Do the math, and that yields a cost of goods manufactured of exactly $15,000. Finally, we feed that $15,000 COGM right into our finished goods calculation. Say we start with a beginning finished goods inventory of $6,000. We add our $15,000 cost of goods manufactured, then we subtract our ending finished goods inventory of $11,000. And there it is. That leaves us with exactly $10,000 for our cost of goods sold. See how beautifully one calculation feeds perfectly into the next.
Section 5, common exam mistakes.
So where do candidates usually hemorrhage points on the exam? Honestly, it's rarely the big picture concepts. It's almost always the tiny, easily overlooked details in the formulas that trip people up under pressure. Think of this next bit as your personal exam survival guide to protect those hard-earned points. The source material goes out of its way to emphasize being extremely meticulous with the data they give you. Here are the big 3 computational traps you need to avoid. Number 1, forgetting to add freight in to raw material purchases. Always remember, freight in is absolutely a cost of direct materials. Number 2, mixing up your additions and subtractions. You have to keep your beginning and ending inventories completely straight. Always add the beginning, always subtract the ending. And number 3, confusing cost of goods manufactured with cost of goods sold. Please never stop at COGM when the question asks for COGS. Remember, COGM is just an intermediate step. Now that you have the entire factory floor mentally mapped out, I'll leave you with this final thought. Since these formulas stack, just one tiny miscalculation in direct materials will cascade all the way down and completely corrupt your final cost of goods sold. So how confident are you in catching every hidden detail on test day? Practice that sequential stacking, watch out for those common traps, and you are going to easily master manufacturing cost flows. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and remember to keep your focus on those fundamentals.